Hello everyone, and welcome to my Royal Family Politics channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Yesterday, the 39-year-old Duke of Sussex lost his legal battle to keep his government-funded protection in the United Kingdom. Following the Home Office declined to utilize public funds to pay for his bodyguards following Megxit, he has promised to appeal. Arthur Edwards, the royal photographer for The Sun, called Harry's action ridiculous and said the High Court was correct to dismiss it. "I think Harry should stop going to the High Court," he remarked, appearing on The Sun's royal exclusive program. "He appears to lose every time he goes. On Sunday, he lost to the Mail. He ended up footing the bill for his own legal fees, so his victory over the Daily Mirror wasn't really a victory. I believe that it must end. Harry shouldn't, in my opinion, demand royal protection." Parts of these have been outlined in today's findings: how Diana was handled, who is taking charge of his family, and how he felt that racism had increased threat levels. Harry questioned, "A position that no one was willing to put my mother in 23 years ago, and yet today, with greater risk, as mentioned above, with the additional layers of racism and extremism, someone is comfortable taking accountability for what could happen." Harry was asking who would be willing to put him and his family in a position of extreme vulnerability and risk. Please let me know the name of the individual who is prepared to accept responsibility for this decision. In addition, the prince inquired as to whether anyone had considered the consequences of the choice to reduce his security. He continued, "Prove to me that someone has actually thought about the consequences without being punitive, which is how most of the decisions have been made in the last couple of months. Aside from that, the obvious difference is that I was born into this, and the threat will never lessen because of my status regarding the family," Harry explained. He is no longer employed by the royal family. He just shows up when he feels like it. When he finds he fancies coming, he doesn't stay very long, Arthur continued. "Even yet, I fail to see why he shouldn't foot the bill for his own protection. By discrediting the royal family, he is generating sufficient income. And he expects to come here and for people to sort of carry on as though nothing's happened." A judge determined that there was no unlawfulness in the decision to remove Harry's security. Sir Peter Lane, a retired High Court judge, said that the ruling was justified rather than irrational, as it had been labeled. The Duke of Sussex, however, has stated that he is not asking for preferential treatment and promised to challenge the decision. When the Sussexes resigned from their royal duties in 2020, they lost their round-the-clock protection. Harry lamented that, because it is too dangerous, he couldn't go back with Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet. "He should stop this ridiculous suing people, stop trashing his family," stated royal snapper Arthur. "He ought to start moving forward with talking to his brother once more. He recently spent 30 minutes with his father when he came to visit him. After everything that has happened over the years, I don't think that was sufficient. There is a lot to say in 30 minutes. And he ought to have visited his brother and attempted to put an end to the conflict after visiting his father. This is absurd. He stops by for a day or two during the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, or for an hour or two. Then, for the coronation, he stops by for a day. For that, he ought to have brought his son Archie. He just popped in, did it, and went back the next day," Arthur continued. "You can't simply keep acting that way and expect Scotland Yard to send out elite, well-trained cops who will just go after Harry when it suits him, in my opinion. I think the Home Office was right to reject his appeal." According to his spokesperson today, Prince Harry will file an appeal after the Home Office lost a High Court battle challenging the decision to reduce his taxpayer-funded personal security when he visits the country. After learning that he would not receive the same degree of publicly sponsored protection while in the UK, the Duke of Sussex filed a lawsuit against the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures, HYPOCRITICAL. His attorneys had argued that the body, which is within the purview of the Home Office, singled out and treated him less favorably in its February 2020 ruling. However, during a December hearing in London, the government maintained that 39-year-old Harry's petition ought to be rejected, claiming HYPOCRITICAL had the right to determine that the Duke's protection was to be bespoke and evaluated case by case. After 2 months, retired High Court Judge Sir Peter Lane has finally ruled on the matter this morning, stating that the judicial review application has been denied. Harry, however, indicated through a representative that he will file an appeal, stressing that he was not asking for preferential treatment, but for a fair and lawful execution of Ravek's own standards. The ruling, which the Home Office subsequently stated the government was pleased with, coincides with another day of tragic and dramatic royal events in Britain, which include: the Duke of Sussex will appeal today's verdict, which dismisses his judicial review challenge against the decision-making body Ravek, which includes the Home Office, the Royal Household, and the Met Police, a legal representative for the Duke stated in response to the ruling. The role-based category, the occasional category, and the other VIP category are the 3 categories that make up the Ravek cohort, despite the fact that Ravek does not use these designations. This information was discovered during the case. The Duke is not requesting special treatment, rather, he is requesting that Ravek's own written policy be applied fairly and legally, guaranteeing that he be given the same consideration as everyone else. In February 2020, Ravek disregarded the Duke of Sussex's request to be included in a specific risk analysis and failed to implement its written policy. In the Duke's case, the risk analysis cannot be replaced by the so-called bespoke procedure that he faces. The Duke of Sussex hopes the Court of Appeal will grant him justice, and he will not comment further while the case is pending. The court said there has not been any unlawfulness in reaching the decision, according to a judgment summary in Harry's case that was made public this morning. It also stated that the decision was not irrational. The court concluded that there was no unlawfulness by Ravek in its arrangements for his visits to Britain and that the decision was not marred by procedural unfairness. Sir Peter ruled that Harry's attorneys had adopted an improper, formalist interpretation of the Ravek process in his 52-page partially redacted opinion. The bespoke approach that was designed for the claimant in the February 28, 2020 ruling was and is legally sound, he continued. The judge added, it is clear that the February 28, 2020 decision was forward-looking in nature. The assumption that the claimant should have gotten both a bespoke approach and an RMB risk analysis undermines the defendant's witness evidence, which should be given weight for the reasons I have stated. In reference to the other VIP group, the evidence does not demonstrate any irrationality or other unlawfulness. Sir Edward Young, who was Queen Elizabeth II's private secretary at the time, provided Harry a draft options paper on January 11, 2020, which Sir Peter also acknowledged was highly relevant and stated that the level of protection is a decision for the Home Secretary, delegated to the chair of Ravek. The process was outlined in the court documents. Fiona Msilwam, Harry's personal secretary, spoke with Cabinet Secretary Sir Mark Sedwill after that. She sent an email stating that she had faithfully relayed the details you provided on security to the Duke. No basis in the claim that the defendant failed to operate in a procedurally fair manner, declared the judge. Specifically, there was no basis for assuming that the claimant's private secretary was ignorant of the security concerns resulting from the claimant's redacted text, he continued. The judge further stated, on the contrary, the evidence shows that she was entirely conversant with them, in reference to a meeting that took place on January 27, 2020, between Prince William's private secretary Simon Case and Sir Edward, the chair of Ravek. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, so please don't forget to subscribe my channel and don't miss any update.